Good evening, or good morning, probably by the time this video gets uploaded. Tony here, and I'm back for a second installment of my vinyl collection must-haves. Um, Hope to make this a fairly regular thing, so we'll see. Thanks for all the good feedback on the first one, and a lot of great comments, and I really appreciate it. And keep them coming. So, if you're familiar with my videos and my musical tastes, then you know that I am a Neil Young fanatic. So, of course, I have to spotlight him at least a few times in these videos, I'm sure. But tonight I'm going to start with Neil Young's On the Beach. And this is just a classic album. And one I feel that if you're a fan of rock and roll, if you're a fan of music, if you're a fan of Neil, especially, this is an album that everybody should have, I think. It is just a fantastic record and is one of my favorites. Um, as I've said before, I've been a Neil Young fan for years, since I was 15 or 16, I'd say. Um, and as I accumulated his albums, or I should say CDs and cassettes, then um, this was one that obviously eluded me a lot because it wasn't available. It wasn't released on CD until I don't know, early to mid 2000s, and it was just impossible to find. Now I'd read in books and see most Neil Young books have a list of his discography, and there were a number of albums on there that just I couldn't get. They were impossible. So part of the motivation for me to actually get into vinyl were these albums that were never released on CD. They include On the Beach, um, Time Fades Away. Um, I want to say Reactor. I know there were a few that were just never released on CD and barely available on cassette. And this was even before Napster and everybody downloading on MP3s. But so these albums were a motivation for me to actually get into vinyl because it's the only way you could really find them. So, um, as you could probably guess, this was one of my first records that I owned. Um, I think I received this record. I got my first record player as a birthday gift, and I think my birthday is near Christmas. So, and on that Christmas that followed, my wife bought me this as a gift. But anyway, um, when I got this, it was like there were tracks on here that I'd never heard, so it was real exciting for me. And this is just a fantastic record. It really, I think this spotlights Neil at it's it's during one of his many creative peaks. I think. I mean, obviously throughout the entire '70s and '60s. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the guy could do no wrong. Um, but this is part of what's called the Ditch trilogy for um, you Neil fans out there. I'm sure this is a you're familiar with this trilogy, and it's basically um, three albums written in succession, three in a row, that were considered very bleak and kind of depressing. Um, Basically, that period was ushered in by the deaths of Danny Winton, the original guitarist in Crazy Horse, and another death of Bruce Berry, who was a roadie for Neil and Crosby, Stills and Nash, and someone in their inner circle who both drug casualties. um, so basically, a lot of these songs deal with, especially on Tonight's Tonight, drugs and things like that. But this was actually recorded um, before. I'm sorry, recorded after Tonight's the Night was recorded, but this was released before it. Neil shelved Tonight's Tonight for a while and decided to put this out after he recorded it. And I guess it's the last of the trilogy. Um, if you're if you're not familiar with Tonight's Tonight or Time Fades Away, you would still think that this is a very depressing album. I get at times, but of the three, this is probably the least. I think it was said somewhere that this was, looking back now in retrospect, this was probably Neil saying goodbye to that period. That it wasn't so bleak. Anyway, recorded with basically session musicians and friends. Ben Keith was a big part in this record, who passed away last year. Famous pedal steel player who played on a lot of Neil's stuff. Ben also brought in a friend of his named Rusty Kirkshaw, who was a Cajun guy, who was basically a lunatic, but I guess a great player. And this is the only album that Rusty played on. And what he brought with him were things called honey slides. So in these sessions for this album, he would basically take marijuana, he would take pot, I guess just terrible brick weed, and put it in a frying pan and cook it until it just started smoking, and then he'd add honey to it, and it would just make this gloppy stuff, and they'd just eat it, they'd spoon it down, and the effect of it was apparently very, very strong, and they say that kind of is the cause for the whole mood of this record, how it's down and slow at times, but there's some great tracks on here. It opens with Walk On, and it's probably one of Neil's most optimistic songs, especially during this time. It's also on Decade, and it's a great song. The second song, See the Sky Above the Rain, in my opinion, is like one of the most beautiful songs ever written. It's just gorgeous. It has this keyboard in it, and Neil's playing on it. It's just fantastic. Check that out. Go on the internet and look for even just a clip of it. See the Sky Above the Rain off of On the Beach. It's just a gorgeous song. Revolution Blues is a more of a guitar rocker kind of song, and it's written about Charles Manson, who Neil met and knew before the murders. Neil actually helped out Charles Manson by, he gave him like a motorcycle or something. Charles Manson was quoted as saying as a lot of the musicians that he knew in California really kind of shit on him, but Neil was really cool and helped him out. So, but David Crosby also plays on Revolution Blues, and the song kind of scared the hell out of him, and he didn't like playing it live. When Neil toured shortly after with Crosby, Stills, and Nash, it just scared the hell out of him. It contains the line, something to the effect of, I hear that Laurel Canyon is full of famous stars, and I hate them worse than lepers, and I'll kill them in their cars. And it just scared the hell out of Crosby, who was extremely famous at the time. For the Turnstiles, probably again one of my favorite Neil Young songs, and it's just Neil and Ben Keith, I believe, playing dobro, and it is just a fantastic song, and it's about a party that they either went to or heard about, where it was basically, I don't know if it was an orgy or what, but there were prostitutes there, and it was $5 to get into the party, which at the time they said was just a lot of money for that kind of thing then. So, or $15 at the door. The lyric is, Vampire Blues is basically about the state of the economy at the time, the oil shortage and things like that, and it's a fantastic song. On the Beach, the second side now is 3 songs, and they're all longer, and really this is where the more downbeat stuff comes in, but it's all brilliant. On the Beach, which is just a personal, fantastic song, probably one of Neil's more personal songs. Motion Pictures, which was written about his girlfriend Carrie Snodgrass, who he was with, and they had a child with. The relationship is on the rocks at the time. And then closing with Ambulance Blues, again, a great Neil Young song, and I'm not really even sure what it's about. The lyrics are very cryptic, to say the least, but it's still a brilliant song. And Neil said himself that he kind of copied the melody from Bert Janich, who actually toured with Neil last year. But it's a great song. I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with Ambulance Blues if you're into Neil Young. But yeah, this is just, again, one of my favorite Neil Young records, and really is a must-have. The packaging itself is, again, really strange. I think I pointed this out in another video. Well, first, the inside. If you look at the style of the chairs and the umbrella in this photo, and you see that pattern of the floral pattern, I guess you know you have an original. If the inside of the record has, I don't know if you could see that, if it has that same pattern in there. And this photograph, which is lyric sheets, and this is actually a letter from Rusty Kirkshaw, and it's in sand. Neil took this photograph and basically printed over it for the liner notes of Tonight's the Night. And it's just an odd thing that Neil did, but again, guys, this is just a great album. If you're not into Neil, or if you're looking for something to listen to, it's a fantastic record. Even if not, if you're not into Neil, I check this out. I highly recommend it. So again, this is one that should be in every great record collection. So, guys, thanks a lot. Please leave me some comments. Let me know what you think. Do you have this album? What do you think of it? Also, I was thinking this could also be like these could be thread videos. If you have this album, maybe you can respond with a video telling me your thoughts on, and telling everybody your thoughts on this record. But just an idea. But please let me know what you think, and take care, guys.